Hey, everybody, and welcome to Incorruptible Mass News. This is for Wednesday, April 5th, 2023. So, in climate news, by 2035, California will require half of all heavy trucks sold to be electric. Just last year, they passed a bill saying that all passenger vehicles sold would be electric. And what boggles my mind is that in order to pass these laws, they had to get a special permission from the EPA because otherwise states are not allowed to pass emission standards for new cars and trucks that are stricter than the national ones. That is totally backwards. Another instance where our government protects corporations and the powerful from democracy. The good news is that once California does it, it paves the way for other states to do it as well. And supposedly there's some other states, 8 other states, but nobody knows which ones, that are planning to do it. If you remember from last week, the Pacific country of Vanuatu had proposed a UN resolution for the International Court of Justice to rule on consequences for climate inaction. It was co-sponsored in the end by over 120 countries, but not the United States, and it did pass. So it establishes a legal litmus test to hold countries accountable in the courtroom for climate failures. This week, the Biden administration opened auctions to drill 73 million acres in the Gulf of Mexico for oil and gas, and also approved a massive multi-decade-long oil and gas drilling project in Alaska. The United Arab Emirates will be hosting this year's UN Climate Summit, COP28. At the same time, this country is spending $150 billion to quickly expand its oil and gas drilling. 90% of the oil and gas expansion being planned by their national oil company would have to stay in the ground to be compatible with the climate targets set by the International Energy Agency. And this is the country that is hosting the UN Climate Summit. In 2019, New York passed one of the most ambitious climate laws in the country around how quickly to get the state to net zero. And now Governor Kathy Hochul, I hope I pronounced that correctly, who got $500,000 in donations from fossil fuel interests, is trying to gut that law. And a meta-analysis of 92 previous scientific studies has concluded that time in nature links to improvements in anxiety, depression, and blood pressure. So get out there and spend some time in the woods, and then come back refreshed and help us save the environment. In international news, Finland has officially joined NATO. In the Finnish elections this week, the ruling center-left party did gain some seats, but they didn't gain nearly as many as the main conservative party. And because of this, Sanna Marin, who's a very popular center-left prime minister, is out, and a conservative prime minister, Petteri Orpo, is in. Russia has now detained a Wall Street Journal reporter named Evan Gershkovich on charges of spying. If he is convicted, he faces up to 20 years in prison. Many foreign news organizations pulled out of Russia last year after President Vladimir Putin signed a law making it a crime to disseminate what the Kremlin calls fake information about the invasion of Ukraine. So you can see that they are making it very painful to be a reporter on their issues. National news. Progressive wins in Wisconsin and Chicago. Janet Protasiewicz, I'm sorry, I should have practiced this before. Janet Protasiewicz, I'm sorry, I am not pronouncing this correctly. She won the Wisconsin Supreme Court election, which matters for a number of reasons. There is a controversial 1840s abortion ban that is still on the books in that state. The court should really be stepping in to stop the gerrymandering in the state. And there are fears that the Supreme Court of Wisconsin could counteract the official vote count in the 2024 presidential election. So it really matters who won that one. And she was the progressive choice. In Chicago, progressive teacher and union organizer Brandon Johnson won over conservative tough on crime Paul Vallis. Tornadoes across the Midwest and the South kill 32 people as extreme weather increases. Trump pleads not guilty to 34 felony counts around his hush money sent to Stormy Daniels. I'm sure you can find a lot of information on that piece of news in every news outlet in the world. And Trump's lead over DeSantis before his indictment was about 8 points. In the latest poll, post-indictment, it is over 20 points. And finally, in national news, 15 million people, including millions of children, are expected to lose their Medicaid benefits as the pandemic protections expire on April 1st. Oh, in state news, the COVID eviction protections for tenants that I talked about last week, they did in fact expire. They were not extended. There are 4 lawsuits that threaten Vineyard Wind, which is the first major offshore renewable energy wind turbine bank in the country. 2 of those lawsuits are from landowners, 2 are from fishing groups, and turbine installation is scheduled for this summer. The state of Massachusetts has reached a $40 million settlement with the hundreds of minority police officers that the state ruled the promotional exam discriminated against. And a new Massachusetts law on passing cyclists and pedestrians is now in effect. So you should know, if you're driving on the streets and you pass a bike, a scooter, skateboard, rollerblades, a wheelchair, an old lady with a walker, an old lady without a walker, you got to leave them 4 feet of space, not just 3. That's new, and please do it. So we also are letting you know about activism that is coming up this week, things that you can do. On April 5th, that is today at 5 p.m., is Sierra Club's Advocacy Hour. I believe it is on Zoom, and you can find information at sc.org/advocacy hour. On April 13th, starting at 10 a.m., is Progressive Mass's Lobby Day. It is at the State House in room 428. On April 14th at 10 a.m., Progressive Democrats of Massachusetts are having their Hot Topics in Massachusetts Tax Policy. This is over Zoom, and you can find out more at progressivedemsofmass.org/forums. And if you know of any actions happening, please do let us know. We will announce them each week. You can find us, Incorruptible Mass, on any social media platform or email us at info@incorruptiblemass.org. And thanks for listening.